critics of theism try to discourage me by claiming that the statements of theism are incoherent. They logically contradict or are totally meaningless.
Yes. Some of the sentences we utter clearly contain a buried contradiction. Theism claims that God is a person, but a person who doesn't have a body. And a critic might come along, many critics have come along and said, to say that there is a person is to say that there is someone who occupies a chunk of space and therefore must have a body. So there is an immediate contradiction there. So we've got to look at how you show that something is coherent or how you show it isn't. If somebody questions the coherence of a statement, the only way you can show that it is coherent is to describe very fully a state of affairs in which it would be true and to show that the disputed statement follows from that state of affairs. Now, in the case of theism, they question whether person without body is coherent. So the only way I can make sense, try to persuade them it is coherent, is to describe what this would be like. And I would start by giving a story, not about God, but just about a low-grade spirit who doesn't have a body but is a person. And I would say, well, suppose you find yourself unable to control your body, which you can't make any difference to, but you do find yourself gradually acquiring a different perspective on the world, not looking out from here, but looking out from a position where there is no body. And you find that you can make a difference to things there, but not a difference to things here. And I describe in more and more detail the experiences you would have and what would happen in the room and what you could make a difference to, even though there was no chunk of matter corresponding to your body. And in that way, I would be gradually making sense of, showing you that it was a coherent supposition that there is a bodiless person. Analogously, the only way to show that some supposition is incoherent is to derive a contradiction from it. And if somebody questions whether your derivation is correct, the only thing to do is to go through it more precisely, thoroughly, or produce a different contradiction. It's not an easy matter, either way, to show that something is coherent or something isn't coherent. And one must, I think, give anybody the benefit of the doubt in supposing that if they utter a sentence is coherent. But there are these ways of trying to show people that what they say is incoherent or what they say is coherent, and theism ought to be open to the same approaches.
What then is the global importance of thinking coherently in theism?
Religion makes a claim about how things are. If the claim is incoherent, it must be false, because if it's incoherent, it's like saying that there is a square with only three sides. This is a straightforward contradiction, because to be a square, you have to have four sides. If something contains an internal contradiction, then it must be false, because the contradiction is false. And so if anybody can show there's an incoherence in theism, then that must be false. But of course, theism can be stated somewhat inaccurately, somewhat loosely, so as to contain these apparent contradictions, and it's the job of the philosopher to state it very carefully so that there aren't any contradictions involved, and I think that can be done. These notions can be tidied up, I believe, in a perfectly precise way so that there is no contradiction involved.